Okay, so this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, but what happened was basically I'm barely on the phone and I haven't had enough internet to upload some videos, so I didn't have any space like two other ones I had made, and then I don't really have the time and my situation is still pretty upside down. But basically these are some screenshots of different comments that I've put together, which basically go along with things that I'm always talking about on here. The first one goes along with the fact that really it seems like nobody but child molesters have rights. And of course, the thing that I always say, which is that child molesters make the laws, and that's why they're not on the side of anybody but perpetrators. And that's also why kids in the US are always getting life sentences and people under 18 can't defend themselves. Even if they're saving their whole family, they're going to be locked up in some mental facility. And then they're going to go to another part of the cash for kids system, which is going to be the juvenile justice system, or maybe a TTI. And then there's this other comment that goes along with things I say about the school system and how they're just one of the many branches of the cash for kids system and they play a role in traumatizing people. But of course, that situation that dude describes also falls on the parents' end. And it's something that happens a lot, especially in daycares where parents ignore their kids not wanting to go to the school, but it's because they're being sexually abused or really any type of abuse. And then there's these other comments, posts, which are from when I still used to get on Reddit, although that post is actually like 6+ years old. And it was actually made way before the Abuse Escape sub that I used to get on a lot. Well, not even a lot, but every now and then was made. Because the Abuse Escape sub, which I still don't want to say the name of because I don't want to put anybody at risk, that's been around for like 3 years now. But this person made this post about their Munchausen and how they had to run away from the US to Mexico. They made it on, I think, some narcissistic abuse sub or some other type of parental abuse sub. And then I can't remember, there was something else. Oh, yeah. Then there's a post about another situation where somebody's trying to figure out how to get into a group home or into the foster care system, which is just a part of the Cash for Kids system, because they're trying to weigh out options and they don't want to have to do the whole runaway and lay low till 18 thing. But honestly, I'm just going to let it be known that realistically speaking, you don't want to be in the Cash for Kids system. And if you're in an abuse situation where you're already being pushed through the Cash for Kids system, so like juvenile justice or the mental health system or another one, you don't want to go into CPS custody and become a ward of the state where you're trapped in the Cash for Kids system and you'll end up having to run away from there too. And things that people commonly throw up, which honestly this does happen, because since I've been in the homeless community, a lot of the people out here, most of them are foster kids, but when they're not foster kids, they're people who had to escape or got kicked out of an abuse situation with parents. Then, of course, there's those few people that are older where they just couldn't work anymore. They have health issues and they never thought they'd be in that position. But that's not the majority, definitely not the population that I'd even mention on this channel because that's not what this is about. But anywho, the thing is, even if you did manage to somehow get CPS to actually take you in and get you out of your abuse situation, you're still going to be kicked out of CPS at 18 if they don't drive you crazy and have you locked up somewhere the rest of your life. So you're going to be homeless at 18, like a lot of the people I've met around here. I even recently met somebody who was in one of the CPS taming situations that I talk about a lot. And she's from Egypt and was adopted by the usual rich white family. And then they didn't even want her anymore and they gave her to CPS here. And now she's living in her car in her early 20s. And it seems like she wasn't in the home for a long time from how the story goes. But anyway, anyhow, back to the point. So, people will commonly throw up the fact that if you leave an abuse situation under 18, you're gonna end up homeless, which is obvious. I mean, unless it depends on your situation. Though, if you're not in like some Munchausen mental label situation, you may have a better chance of going to somebody like some shelter or something. But that depends on where you live, because at the end of the day, you can't go to a shelter under 18. And if you do find one that does let you go, they're usually for foster kids or for kids who are homeless with their parents. But they may say yes, but of course, if you have a whole bunch of Munchausen mental labels in some report, unless you lie about your name and age, which is honestly what I'd advise someone to do, if you can get to a place with low barrier enough shelters where you can just lie about your age, then, dang, what was I saying? I do this every single video. I don't know, but being in a Munchausen situation makes it hard. Really, if you're in any situation where there's a missing persons report, it's going to make it worse for you. At least if you even want to take the shelter route. But honestly, I mean, shelters aren't even really something that you really want to live at, even at 18 plus, depending on what type it is. It's like, well, no, because if I go into that, it'll be somewhere else. But yeah, anyway, people okay, wait a minute, they'll throw that up. Of course, there's just a little guilt tripping and gaslighting things people say to try to make you feel bad about even saying that you're in an abuse situation under 18. But if it was like domestic violence with someone you were dating and you were like in your 20s or something, people would have more sympathy, or at least pretend to. But yeah, it's kind of like either way it goes, it's not going to be good. Definitely not in the beginning. And of course, the longer where you have till 18, the worse. But I'd still say I'd rather do the lay low till 18 thing than even going to CPS custody, because something that a lot of people seem to not think about is, would it really be safe in a system that you have to beg to get into that claims that they're there to help you? But it seems like a lot of people don't think about that. But of course, a lot of people never get out the stage of pretending that there is a system put in place to help them. When you don't get out that stage, you're going to eventually fall into a victim complex because you feel like somebody's supposed to help you when really nobody is and no one's going to. Definitely not the systems put in place, but maybe you'll find some random person. Although I wouldn't even advise that, because people who come claim that they want to help, of course there's always going to be some motive behind that, and that can go really, really left. And it doesn't even mean that the person's going to be like a child molester, pedophile or something. Because honestly, I've never, I guess, well, for one, I'm not really desperate enough for that type of situation, but I've never ran into something like that, to be honest. It's always other multiple issues with people who come claiming that they want to quote unquote help. Other than that, of course, they can just be pretending they want to help and then be a pedophile, but honestly, I haven't even ran into that one. I've ran into a whole bunch of other mess, but luckily not that. This is the top comment. I spent a third of my life locked up. All I ever did was rob a few safes, try not to feel negative or badly. I saw, unfortunately, a few pedophiles. The most one got was 2 years, messed up over 10 kids' lives. Or think about those who didn't have legs or arms. They live on. Be thankful for this day every day in the name of Jesus. Okay, so overall, the point of me screenshotting this is just because It just proves the whole thing that I'm always saying about the fact that child molesters make the laws and they don't want to lock up their own kind and all that stuff. I am 15, female in Tampa, Florida. Something happened at home where I need to leave as soon as possible. I looked in the shelters, but they all cost money slash are bad, and my parents won't take me. I tried CPS so many times, but they send me to a mental hospital, then send me back. Even with all the evidence of abuse, I don't know if I have any other options. I know foster homes are bad, but I don't know what else to do. I can't wait anymore. My aunt mom got me diagnosed with ADHD when I was 8 to 9, so she could medicate me because I had a stutter that wasn't getting better with school provided speech therapy. Every psychologist I went to completely ignored my severe anxiety symptoms, all because they asked my aunt mom why I was so shy, and she said I was shy too. The line inherited pattern of behavior exists in one of my evaluations. No one gave a single F. In addition, with the ADHD diagnosis, she tried to get me diagnosed with autism, oppositional defiance, OCD, and Fragile X syndrome, so she could collect disability so she didn't have to work and so she can milk the sympathy of being the parent of a special needs child. She had me drugged with Adderall from 9 to 12 and Concerta when I was 12 to 13. When CPS were called on the family in 2010, she told them I had Asperger's syndrome to make them think I made it all up for attention. They didn't drop it. In fact, it made them twist all my words. I would answer their questions honestly with no, and they will lie to people and say that I actually said yes. With the logic, she has Asperger's, she doesn't understand. I have a boatload of documents to prove all of this. It's funny because her mom sounds like my mom. My family and parents are a bunch of well-known individuals and have connections with the police. If you're going to ask if I've called CPS for that kind of stuff, yes, I have. I've called multiple times for the police CPS, practically every number in the book I can use. I've been abused even more each time. I've honestly had enough of the way the police and legal systems treats me under abuse, and I would rather be homeless without a prospect at this point in America. I'm not, but you get the idea. But anyway, let's continue. I ran away from home last year due to being tired of the amount of abuse I faced from my parents and family. Running away in state and to other states has done nothing. Reporting them has done nothing. Police officers tell me to shut up and be quiet. I was facing mental, verbal, physical abuse at the hands of my parents and related family members, and almost sexual at a point. I got into violent physical altercations with which resulted in me getting arrested because apparently in the US, a kid defending herself against parents is a violation of their rights or some ass. After I ran away, I found a job as a cook and cleaner for a restaurant. The family is really nice and speaks English, and I'm allowed to live rent-free. A small bedroom where I try to figure out to see if my situation can be changed. I'm wondering if I could come back to the US and live independently or do something to relieve any power or custody over me. Of course, in their situation, since this post was like 6 years ago, I don't really know what happened after this, but really there was nothing they could do but stay in Mexico where they had went, because if they come back, they're just going to get locked up and put back in the situation. In fact, they're going to be locked up in some mental facility because this is the fact that they ran all the way to Mexico would be used as it would be used to make them seem like they were being risky, which is called I ran out of space on the recording, but I think it's called mania or something. Agreed. My parents really wanted me to go to summer camp with my math teacher. I said no, and I got grounded. Every time I had a math lesson with him, he would molest me for 2 hours. I'd rather get grounded than getting raped at camp. He definitely would have raped me. It really has impacted my sexual life as an adult. It stopped recording again, but anyway, it's important to listen to kids and believe them when they tell you something. If that kid is if that kid is that afraid of camp, I will go and check that camp and who works there. There's obviously something terrible happening there. So basically, this was a comment under a video about a kid who hid on top of his parents' roof because he didn't want to go to summer camp and they reported him missing, but he wasn't actually missing. but if I find it, I'll link it. Okay, so the reason I screenshotted this, which this was a comment under a video about how this girl committed suicide, was because it goes hand in hand with what I say about how the victims get blamed for things, specifically because of what they said about grooming, which reminded me of a video I had made before where I talked about how the kid victims get charged with child sexual abuse imagery, but the actual abusers don't. But anyway, they said, however, keep in mind the media bias. Was the dead person really a good person? Was the suicide actually caused by bullying? Did she do something illegal like being involved in grooming and is/was so ashamed of it that she ended her life? We can never give ourselves that right to judge a person on media portrayal. And I really don't like that because I've actually met some people and heard a couple stories throughout the years, which one of them was severely covered up and hidden by the parents and police departments. But I've heard and known stories of people, if I said that right, where some molester had got them to send them pictures because, of course, they were already in an abuse situation where they felt desperate enough and wanted the attention. And then they sent them to people in their schools and okay, so this comment was under a video that was basically saying when you don't accept your kids, the internet will, or people on the internet will. And I really don't like that because, especially with all the stuff that's being pushed today, pedophiles are being made to seem as safe people providing safe places for kids. And stuff like that has been an issue, really, because of, I mean, of course, the different people I've known whose stories we've all heard of kids who were in bad situations or just weren't being watched enough because their parents were at work all the time or something. And then they fall into abusive mess with quote unquote safe people on the internet. But anyway, dude, I'm a 13-year-old kid and I think I speak for all 13-year-olds when I say letting the internet raise your kid is not a good idea. I downloaded Discord like 7 months ago and now I'm a femboy. This is also mainly because my parents don't have time to raise me because they're divorced. Money is tight, my dad is losing his job again, and my mom has cancer. Please don't raise your kids messed up. Take good care of your kids. Teach them your ideas of wrong or right. Guide them to a sweet life instead of one where they sit up late at night thinking and worrying. This video is the biggest S-pile I've ever seen. This is why people look down on the internet. Videos like these. And I bet the person who made the video is probably like 50 or something. If I can you remember what the video was, I'll link it. Okay, so to make a long story short, this was a video that was definitely pushed by paid promotions of some interview dude who was interviewing the two dudes that got locked up for shooting Yummy Sanders. Yummy Sanders is actually someone I've watched documentaries about a lot throughout the years, like ever since I was like, I don't know, like 9 in the 2010s or something. But basically, he was a kid that grew up a while after the whole ghetto/hoods were created and the whole FBI crack thing happened. And so he grew up in like the worst time period for abuse. And okay, so the time limit ran out again for the voice recording. But anyway, he grew up in the worst time period for abuse and he had a very traumatic childhood, even to the point where when he was finally killed after he killed this other girl because some adults in the gang told him to, he was found with scratches all over him from his abuse. But of course, people in this comment section who knew him were all in denial, and then people who didn't know him were doing the usual abuse victim blame. But it's like nobody actually wants to take accountability for the effects that child abuse actually causes, though. And like I say all the time, which is why on another account I have, I'm always banned off YouTube, but people really just can't get their minds off Willie Lynch syndrome and the plantation, and they constantly promote abuse. But anyway, the main comment I was really looking at when I screenshotted this was this one right here that says, I'm from the Hunnits. The person who killed Yummy was well known and around for many years. these young guys had to take the rap for it, which is something else I don't like with the no snitch culture and people letting kids go to jail for something some grown person did.